and fisheries service sector. Her academic journey in environmental management began with an associate's degree in geography from the Dominica State College, where she graduated with summa cum laude, receiving awards for the Faculty of Arts and Science and the highest academic award for the students with the highest GPA. She continued her studies at the University of Waterloo, earning a bachelor's degree in environmental studies with honors, where she majored in geography and environmental management with a specialization in climate change and geomatics. During her time here, she actively volunteered as an environment ambassador and faculty of environment peer mentor. During that time, she was an agroclimate analyst at Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada, where she conducted monthly drought assessments by analyzing weather data, providing farmers with essential information on emerging drought conditions. This allowed farmers to adjust irrigation and planting schedules to prevent crop loss in corn, soybean, and wheat. Currently, as a climate-smart agriculture officer with WUSC Caribbean Dominica Incorporated, she focuses on sustainable farming practices for vegetables, root and tubers, herbs and spices, and small ruminants to increase productivity amongst women and youth farmers. One of her key initiatives was a model vegetable pilot where various fertilization and irrigation options were tested to determine the best cherry red tomato varieties for the Dominica's climate. She also promoted composting, piloted climate resilient techniques such as shade netting, and the use of sticky tape traps and pheromone lures for pest control. On a voluntary basis, she serves as interim president for the Commonwealth Youth Climate Change Network, the Dominica chapter, co-leader of the Sustainable Ocean Alliance, Dominica Hub, and volunteers with the Global Youth Biodiversity Network and Global Strategic Communications Council. Additionally, she is the national liaison to the High Seas Alliance for the High Seas Treaty, inspired by John Connell's quote, "To be a farmer is to be a student forever, for each day brings something new." Shania believes that embracing innovative, sustainable techniques is crucial for protecting agriculture and enhancing food security in Dominica. Driven by this vision, she's dedicated to promoting a sustainable and resilient future, particularly within the agricultural sector. So that is our panelist number one, Shania Scotland. Next, we have a young lady who has always had a passion for agriculture, Yasmin Chamina John. She's an agriculture officer for the Ministries of Agriculture, Fisheries, Blue and Green Economy. Hailing from Paybush, Yasmin is the youngest of 4 siblings. She holds a bachelor's degree in agricultural science, specializing in livestock science, from the University of the West Indies, along with a certificate in leadership and organization and a diploma in project leadership and management from Cambridge International College. Yasmin continues to enroll in the University of the West Indies continuing education program for her ongoing professional development. After completing her bachelor's degree, Yasmin began her career with the Caribbean Agriculture Research and Development Institute, CARI. She has since worked with various regional and international institutions in the agricultural sector before returning to the Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries, and Blue and Green Economy. Yasmin is a chartered director and currently serves on the board of directors of the National Cooperative Credit Union, NCCU. She's also a member of the Moorpark Improvement Committee and has previously served on the Paybush Village Council. In her personal life, Yasmin enjoys reading and volunteer with both youth and elderly. She's passionate about caring for animals. So that is panelist number 2, Yasmin John. Our third panelist, which is our only panelist hailing from another island, Trinidad and Tobago, Trishana Maharaj, is the Liaison Officer for Soil Care Phase 1 and coordinator of the Research, Advisory, and Capacity Building Facility on New Adaptation Technologies at the Partnership Initiative for Sustainable Land Management, PISLM. She completed her Bachelor of Science, Masters of Science, and Master of Philosophy at the University of the West Indies, St. Augustine campus. She has a broad educational background, as her Bachelor of Science was focused on geography, while her Masters of Science focused on biodiversity conservation, and her Master of Philosophy research investigated the genetic diversity of Trinidad's cocoa or caco population. She has a keen interest in agriculture, and her current position at PISLM involves research that is centered around new and existing technologies in agriculture. That is our third panelist, Trishana Maharaj. And our fourth and final panelist is someone who doesn't need too much introduction, as he already introduced himself. Mr. Diamond Kelshaw is a young man who was able to find a way to bridge a gap between IT and agriculture. He's the founder and manager and director of Ceres Agriculture, a company building relationship between farmers and buyers, actively engaging in buying and selling local produce and products for resale or other uses, and is currently in the process of unrolling a mobile application which will be publicly available to help facilitate the sale of local produce and products. So a round of applause for all of our panelists, please. So without further ado, we will begin our panel discussion on the role of research, innovation, and technology in developing the agricultural sector. Again, I want to encourage all conversations. So my first question is posed to Trishana. How can we build or foster an environment of indigenous innovation and collaboration in the sub-region so that youth are more involved with agencies in solving problems that they face in the agricultural sector? I'll repeat the question. How can we build or foster an environment of indigenous innovation and collaboration in the sub-region so that youth are more involved with agencies in solving the problems that they face in the agricultural sector?
Hi, good morning, everyone. I think that most of us here can relate to when you ask a young person or a child what it is that they would like to be. So the top four answers would usually be a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, or maybe a pilot. It's seldom that you ever hear they want to be a farmer. So from a very young age, it's not really embedded fully into our curriculum. So part of fostering or having an enabling environment is making sure that it's part of the curriculum in terms of yes, we do have agriculture as a CXC subject, but there needs to be a greater effort from a young age to really foster or have more innovation when it comes to indigenous technologies as well. Having a lot of small kitchen gardens within the schools, things like that. But while there are schools that are promoting it, it's still not sufficient. It requires a multitude of approaches to really involve youth in agriculture, create that enabling environment for them. And one of the things is funding. The ability or the access to funding is severely restricted sometimes. Young people need, usually when you go to a financial institution, they ask for certain things. Sometimes it's a proposal. And from a young age, you're not really keen or you're not really taught how to write a proposal. You're not taught how to budget when it comes to certain things. And these are critical aspects of applying for grants. So making our grants more readily accessible, having grants in place as well. So money and education or capacity building is, it's really important when you want to foster or have that enabling environment. Then another thing too is the stigma attached to agriculture. So, from a young age, it's not really pushed or promoted by parents because you don't really hear kids saying they want to be a farmer. They tend to look at a lot of what their parents would have gone through because market access is hard. I mean, here in Dominica, farming on a hilly slope, that's a lot. It takes a lot. So not every parent would push or foster or want their child to remain in agriculture. So, I mean, from a very young age or even young adolescents, they would most way not want to choose a labor-intensive, being outside in the hot sun compared to being in an office setting. So a lot have to do with the psychology or the socio-economic situation with farmers and in trying to encourage a young person in farming now, it's difficult. But I think with the advent of technology, having mobile apps, making markets more accessible, finding niche markets within agriculture as well. It's important. All that helps build or persuade someone to be part of the agricultural cause or initiative. So the same way that they market trying to be a doctor, an engineer, lawyer, it may sound bad or weird, but you have to market agriculture as something that young adults would want to venture into. So having an environment, having supportive policies, having programs from a young age all the way up to the university level. Even after that, making grants or incubator hubs, having the funding available for young people to come together and share their knowledge, run these experiments and trials so that they can see the results, we can market the results, is scientifically based. So a lot have to do with from a young age to build that capacity. But even at the university level, there needs to be greater funding for developing incubators. At the governmental levels, more supportive policy is definitely needed. So I think those are some of the main points or the main issues that need to be addressed when it comes to creating that enabling environments for you to be involved.
Thank you, Trishana. I'd like to open the floor for any questions. Any questions from our audience yet? All right, so we'll move. Go ahead.
Good morning. First off, I would like to say I am wowed by the level of education, innovation that the panelists have. Based on the question that you had asked, I do agree with what she's saying. It needs to start from the education level in changing agriculture. And I always have this saying growing up. I always saw agriculture as a laboring thing, but throughout life is not working hard, it's working smart. If the curriculum can be, starting from the secondary school level, because you can learn the basics in primary school. But from the secondary school level, if the curriculum can be adjusted or improved in involving different technologies within the textbooks, because I remember when I was going to school, it's modern agriculture I was seeing in my textbooks. Nothing with technology. I had to wait until I reached the university level to see the different things and to see the different careers and pathways agriculture opportunity has. So I do agree. I can share a little story. Just the other day, a week before I came here, I was called upon a secondary school in my district to come and give advice on a greenhouse. And they wanted a greenhouse to grow more seedlings, just one greenhouse, but what they have, the space and the land space they have, they're still using the modern technology of agriculture. So I advise the teacher, why not introduce not just a greenhouse, but also shade houses, showing the difference between the modern agriculture and the technology innovations in agriculture. The reason why I had suggested that is to start to spark their imaginations into showing agriculture in a different light, starting from growing aeroponics, aquaponics, those kind of things within the shade of aqua, hydro, those kind of things on a small scale. So I do agree, starting it from a secondary level, advancing the curriculum, showing different technology base. There are other careers in agriculture, like agriculture engineers. I wanted to be an agriculture engineer, but I don't know, I didn't have the knack for it. But agriculture engineers, doctors, I would love to see a doctor that can advise their patients instead of going through the pharmaceutical route, using local herbs in treating illnesses, there are so much herbs that you can use in treating cancers without spending $1,000 in chemo and those kind of things. But that is not something that we are being taught in schools. We have to go and find that knowledge outside of school. So I do agree in what you're saying in advancing the technology, not just from starting in the university, but let us start from the primary, the secondary school going forward. Thank you.
Thank you for that comment. Do we have any additional comments or questions for Trishana? Okay, we will move ahead to our next question, which is going to be posed to Ms. Shania Scotland. So my question to you is, what role, opportunities, initiatives does your organization or its partners provide to open up support to youth participation in creating or leveraging research, innovation, and technology? What role, opportunities, initiatives does your organization and or its partners provide open up to support youth participation in creating or leveraging research, innovation, and technology? I'd just like to remind everyone that Ms. Shania works for WUSC, and so for those of you who are unfamiliar with the organization, maybe before she answers the question, she can give us a little bit of a background on WUSC.
Thank you. So WUSC Caribbean actually stands for World University Service of Canada. So we are not a university. However, we do deal with projects on an international level, mainly in youth refugee projects as well as agriculture. We have a few projects in countries in Africa, such as Ghana, and they have now expanded into the Caribbean, where we now do the Sustainable Agriculture in the Caribbean project in Jamaica, Guyana, Suriname, Dominica, and St. Lucia. So in a nutshell, we actually work with women and youth farmers based on an assessment that identified that they needed a bit more of assistance to take them to the edge, take them to that next level, which we know. I feel like the youth most times were kind of a bit vulnerable because, we probably lack capital, we lack knowledge, or we're just getting ourselves into the groove of things. And we do accept the fact that sometimes we need help, and that's okay. And the project itself aims to build capacity in market systems. So that approach is where you actually deal with all actors on the market chain. So the buyers, such as the supermarkets, exporters. So in Dominica, we have Dexia, we have hucksters. We also deal with agro-processors. We deal with the producers, of course, and we also deal with input providers, the persons that actually bring in agricultural inputs and equipment. And we try to build all of these actors' capacity so that the system can work and come together, because you can't have one without the other. So that is WUSC in a nutshell. But to answer your question, so on May 3rd, 2023, I stepped on a farm in Les Point. And at the time, I wasn't even aware whose farm I was even going to. I did a site visit with my counterpart or field facilitator. He's not here in the room, but his name is Mr. Thomas. And when we did a little climb up to the farm, and when I got a chance to look at the farm, I was like, wow, this place is dry and hot. And I was already sweating. So I was like, okay. No, nothing was planted in the ground. He had cleared his land, but I was like, okay, so what are we really coming to see? And he then brings us to a step higher, where I started to see that he had a greenhouse. So I was like, oh, okay. So his greenhouse at the time was a bit empty. So all he had was, his troughs and some trellises. And he started to actually talk to us a bit about what he wanted to do. So he was a youth. I won't call his name to protect his privacy. And he was telling us that there is a market in Dominica for cherry red tomatoes. There is a market in Dominica for cherry red tomatoes. How can we be importing cherry red tomatoes for $40 a pound? So my ears opened immediately, and I'm here listening to him. Because, this guy, clearly he did his research and he wants to do something to actually tap into that market. And he told us that hydroponics is how we can go about securing that market. And he started to give us a tour of his greenhouse, the different troughs that he wanted to change, how he was going to go about selecting the varieties of cherry red tomato, the nutrient-rich water, what the chemicals he wanted to put in the nutrient-rich water to feed the roots of the cherry red tomatoes. And it was in that moment I realized that, one, research, innovation, and technology was happening all at once, and we didn't even start to facilitate yet. So that means that the youth already has the power. The youth already has that 50%, that 60%, that 70% to leverage research, innovation, and technology on their farms. And what we basically do at Woods Caribbean, we do pilots. So we're not necessarily trying out something that is new, but something that is novel, you know? Or even something that is existing and probably giving it a different adaptation or changing it a bit slightly so that we can ensure that we're learning from not the errors, but what probably didn't work well in the past. And it was from that day we decided that we were going to do a vegetable model pilot, which is something that led to us testing things like, the type of irrigation that he was using, the type of chemicals that he was requiring to basically grow the cherry red tomato. And the main thing, the biggest thing that came from that research and that data reports was that we were able to identify the prime cherry red tomato that can work under that particular condition, which was the yellow pear, the sweet pear, and the sweet million. But we actually tested 18 varieties of cherry red tomato, and that's a lot. But one thing that I will say is that research takes time, and our organization is committed to putting in that time, having that patience to actually have a result and see what we can do with that information. And we continue to do things similar to this. We are currently even doing a herbs and spices pilots in Mount Prosper, where we're working with women and youth farmers again, and we're trying to test to see how shade netting with the usage of local material, because you can have a shade structure without having to buy PVC pipe or having to buy lumber. You can use certain woods to assist you in cutting costs if that may be the issue. And in that area, what they've been experiencing is a large amount of rainfall. So yes, when you hear the word Mount Prosper, you think mountain, because I mean Mount. And it's expected that it will have a lot of rainfall. But what they continue to see is a sharp change in the temperature. So yes, a shower will fall, and then it will be heat for weeks straight. And that puts the crops, as you know, on a lot of significant pressure. And I mean, they're just sensitive, just like us. They're also, I always tell people that plants are feelings. And it's gonna affect their environment, affect the amount of pests and disease that is in that area. So with the shade nets, what we wanted to test again was, how we can reduce the impact of that rainfall, how we can reduce the impact of the sudden changes in temperature in a cost-effective way. And when we take that information, it's not like we're not able to give assistance to the farmers and collaborate with other organizations to give assistance to the farmers. It's just that we're giving assistance to farmers that require it, yes, as well as farmers who are already taking steps on their own to find a solution. So when I think of innovation, and when I think about, my organization that I work with, I think about being a problem solver. So I know that, agriculture is very challenging. There's a lot of issues that we continue to face. And we can have these issues, yes, but what is the solution? That's what we should really be asking ourselves, What is the solution? And a lot of people say technology is the solution. And even Mr. Cyril, when he called this long list, I don't know if you remember it, but I remember some. When he called this long list of things that we can do, like the drones, remote sensing, all those type of things. I mean, yes, that is true, and I think that it has a lot of potential as well, but there's also simpler technologies that we can use. So even in our pilots, we continue to promote things like solar timers. We continue to promote things like using drip irrigation, because drip irrigation, try to save water. You know, I mean, yes, we have an abundance of water in Dominica, but I feel these days, honestly, the rivers be drying up, you know? And that's not what we're accustomed to. So it just gives you a prelude as to what is actually going to come. And with that being said, our organization, we continue to push partnerships and build relationships with the Ministry of Agriculture, with CADI, which is also a research institute, with other projects like IECA, PISLM, and do collaboration where we can have a bigger impact on the farmers' lives. Because these farmers, they have lives, you know. Like, you know, they have lives. Like, I mean, maybe you all may not have kids, or you all probably do, but you have families that you need to attend to. You have bills that you have to pay. And the money doesn't come by that easily. So when you make that level of investment, we try to ensure that that investment will be worth it, you know? And it is critical that we continue to collaborate, to continue to put the ideas on the table, to continue to discuss, and to continue to even fail. Because the only way you can learn is if you fail. Thank you.
Thank you, Shania. I would like to open the floor now for any questions for Ms. Scotland. Okay, I will take Blanford first.
Good morning to everybody. Okay, so yes, I like to say that I can relate to a lot of what you said as to regards with having to find innovation and technology that not just helps you learn about what you do, but helps you find a solution. And that's something that the past 3 years, 3 going on 4 years of agriculture that we have been doing on our farm has helped us to get to a point where we have been solving a lot of our environmental problems and all of those things through simpler use of technology and advancement in that regard. So, like with regards to the tomatoes themselves, we have had this experience, and it's something that we've realized that in Dominica itself, tomatoes tend to be very sensitive to moisture, and you have an advancement of this bacteria which causes them to wilt, and that affects the roots and everything. We have recognized that that is just simply an imbalance of bacteria in the soil. And then what we have done is with one tomato that we tried, because we are located in the northeast region of the island, a lot of moisture. So growing tomatoes was very hard for us before, especially when we tried it, doing it directly in the soil, and we use chemicals and that kind of stuff. And that's why certain cherry tomatoes will grow better in hydroponics, because you find that they tend to be more resilient. But what we have recognized is that you can grow different varieties of tomatoes also using simple and natural techniques where you maintain the balance of the good microbiology in the soil, and then when you run that through the entire system, it can even reverse the bacterial wilt and all that kind of stuff. So we did that and documented all of that already. So I'm very interested in expanding that research with vegetables and so on, because we have an increasingly high demand for it, and it's something that a wider range of farmers can tap into because we have development and infrastructure coming. And if we look forward and ahead, we can see we're going to have that need even more, and they need something that's going to help them to not just grow cherry tomatoes, but the other intermediate tomatoes that we like and need, and some of the restaurants need for their burgers and their sandwiches. Restaurants probably like the cherry tomatoes because of their size and their flavor, all that kind of thing. So we need to learn how to diversify, but keep the techniques simple, like you said, but not just keep them simple. Another thing that we have to encourage our farmers to do is document what they do, data analysis, and that's where the technology comes in. So that will help not just us know what we do, but we don't lose touch with the modern technologies that we have. We learn to improve them, but also implement some of the natural stuff that we do, understand how they work, And then that will make it easier to not just apply it to one scenario, but then you can tend to do that in a wider range. So that's something that I have done myself. I would not mind sharing that with you and, helping us understand how we can do that further. But that's something that I understand very well. And it's also encouraging to know that you can help a farmer to make progress in that sense. And I'm sure he probably spoke about not just tomatoes, but other stuff that he wanted to grow in that soil. So it can work. We just have to have the solutions ready. And like we say, start somewhere and try to make things work instead of, seeing all the problems and not having solutions. We have to fail and try again sometimes. Yeah, thank you.
Sorry, put the representative from Massey and another individual from the back, and then I'll take your question.
Right, thank you. It's about survival of the species, of those microorganisms. And that battle won't end. We will keep fighting that battle, right? So I think there's a lot of opportunity in the market when it comes to production. And I like what I'm hearing, that we have too often that we try to go and approach things alone. And there's some missing links that later we realize and we make an out. So I would really support that unified approach. Let the hotel industry come to the table. And like I said yesterday or the day before, let the telecommunication come too. We need to communicate. Also, we need the supermarkets on board. We need the technical people on board, the caddies, the ECAs. We have to produce our food. That's the long and short of it. And the more we don't do it, the more we get the people that subsidize the agricultural sector, more we give them work, more we send money to them. But let me say one thing. That farmer you all spoke about, you didn't mention the farmer. It's important that you make that farmer write his story. Some people need to hear that story. The story is a selling point to a lot of people. Okay, that's all I have to say.
We'll take a question in the back.
Hello, all right. Hi. Hello, I'm Ajay, and I have been here for about a week. I run a tech company, and we are building a platform for sales, for wholesale sales, extra-regionally and intra-regionally. A lot of my meetings have been with government agencies and, what I would say concerned parties, and it seems like there's a lot of effort and a lot of real solid, genuine motivation to try to approach some of these solutions from a data-driven perspective in terms of understanding things a little bit more. But something that I'm also realizing inside of all of these conversations is that there isn't really I suppose a kind of a common place for this data to kind of exist with itself and cross-reference. And I'm wondering about how there can be, much to the purpose of the organization, like you were talking about, this kind of a consolidator of efforts and consolidator of intentions. I'm wondering about how much effort can be placed into finding a way or a model to gather everyone's data and use it to improve things, because much to your point, I'm not NAMDEFCO, in Trinidad, we have a farmer extension program, much like in Dominica. We have an information management system, much like in Dominica. But unlike Dominica, we have a climate that is a little bit less variant, right? So the information management system that your government is using, there isn't really a way to distance like crop predictions in the northeast versus in the south. And you actually have that distance in Dominica. Like it's a rarity, right? But I don't think that you will be able to get down to that level of granularity with just the Farmers Extension alone, or with Dexia alone, or with Cardia alone. So if it is that you guys have these multiple points of data input, how is there a way to kind of like manage the ingress of this data, but then also find a way for it to positively impact everybody? Because I feel like it can't just be one agency's work alone to manage the data. Is there any way like you could see organizations like yours kind of performing that role?
I wouldn't say that we will perform that role, but we can probably facilitate the role and collaborate with the other agencies to get that done. You know, even when I wrote my reports, I shared my reports with all the hotels and the supermarkets like Fresh Market, Best Price, Fine Foods, Lean Nomad. I shared it with the hotels like Fort Young Hotel, Secret Bay, so that they were aware about the data. And I mean, obviously, definitely shared it for our farmers that were involved. Other farmers that were not involved, Ministry of Agriculture, shared it with Cardi. We shared it with a lot of people, actually. And I feel like we won't be able to probably manage the information system because, I mean, that actually falls under the portfolio of MOA, but we are definitely committed to keeping our information open so that it is accessible to whoever requires it or who has an interest in it. When we develop these pilots, we also try to get the opinions of the Ministry of Agriculture so that it's a joint effort because they too have their own things that they need to get done under their belts, and they want to see the market system thrive. They want to see the crops get better. They want to see the farmers making money. They want to see the farmers having a market. So that's the approach that we mainly take most times for that. And I feel like we can put it on the table to try to ensure that things are constantly updated. However, we won't be able to possibly lead on it.
I'm sorry, I wasn't trying to imply that any one organization should be in charge of it, but I think that what I'm more asking, like the ministry sounds like the source of truth, right?
Of course.
And I'm wondering, like, how can we have multiple, like, does the ministry have any kind of a mandate around taking everybody else's data and using it to affect the information management system? Maybe you're not the right person to ask. But yeah, I was just wondering about it.
So as of now, I'm not sure if there is a point person trying to get everything together. However, I think that it is something that they're probably doing in the back end. So in regards to the channels to get the information, most times you probably have to reach out to the extension officer, or for different type of crops, different crops have like coordinators, in charge of that particular crop and what happens in that crop. So that too is also a factor. So.
Thank you, and then we'll take one more question to the front here.
Hello, good morning. My name is Don Seja. I'm here in the capacity of team leader of brand Nature Islanders Productions. It's a Dominica thing. Now, Nature Islanders Productions, or NIP for short, is primarily focused on manufacturing. At present, with beans obtained from the bosom of Dominica herself, Syndicate, we provide a very enticing and flavorful coffee product, guaranteed at satisfying one's taste buds. All right, so my question is, can I, as a manufacturer, apply on behalf of the farmers that I work with to help modernize their processes with the use of the technologies that are readily available, Because the farmers that I work with, they still use hand pulpers. They don't even have mechanized hand pulpers. They still dry on the ground. They don't have coffee haulers. I had to use from my limited resources to import a coffee hauler. So like international coffee producers, they purchase the coffee from suppliers hauled already. Our farmers here don't have these technologies. Also, they are unable to grade or even identify the varieties of coffee that they have on the farm. For some years ago, I got into contact with a gentleman from Israel, and he took interest into my business. And on his personal time, apart from what he came here to do, he came to visit the farms in Syndicate. And I was impressed with this gentleman. He's very humble. We were actually in the coffee field on the cocoa tree, rain falling, he's eating cocoa with me, and he's pointing out that there are varieties of coffee that we didn't even know that they're on the farms. So I'm asking, as a manufacturer, can I apply on behalf of my farmers?
Was that gentleman Keelan?
Sorry?
Was it Keelan from Israel?
Keelan, well, I'm not Ivan.
Okay.
Ivan,
Cool.
yeah.
All right. So in regards to the specific crop, as in like coffee, what I will say though is that for like our organization, because we're going based off a study that was done, we had to zone in on particular crops. So we zoned in on vegetables such as lettuce, bell pepper, tomatoes. We zoned in on small ruminants, goats, rabbits. We also zoned in on roots and tubers like ginger and turmeric, white potato, as well as herbs and spices such as thyme, parsley, celery, chive, and so forth. So it's not like we'll be able to directly try to assist or collaborate with you on it because of that because of the fact that you're in coffee. But I will say though that it's a really good attempt. It's a really good thing that you're all actually doing. First of all, coming together. I'm sure you're all cultivating at the same time and possibly trying to process. But what I will try to probably advise is, one, there are a lot of grants out there where you can get assistance. So, you can probably reach out to people like, just small grants. You can also reach out to people like the National Conservation Trust Fund to try to get a little bit of funding to get you all going, because at the end of the day, what I'm hearing is that, you just want to make the process more efficient, right? And save time and so forth. So, and I feel too also that, with that technology, you getting the pulp already and you're just selling the pulp, it really it even takes you to a next level where you can even sell for more.
Left.
So, okay, all right. So, like that's what I would recommend in a situation like that. And I think there's a lot of potential for brand NIP to really even make the coffee products, not just a Dominican product, but also a regional and hopefully an Amazon product. So thank you.
All right, thank you again for all the questions. We do have a question and answer round after, so we can wait on that, but I want to continue the panel discussion with the other panelists. So if you have another question for Ms. Shania, we can save it till after. So my next question is posed to Diamond. How can governments in the Caribbean create a more supportive policy and regulatory framework that encourages research, innovation, and technology adoption and protect intellectual property for young innovators? So again, how can governments in the Caribbean create more supportive policies and regulatory framework that encourage research, innovation, technology adoption, and protect intellectual property for young innovators?
I think it's important for all governments, governing agencies throughout the Caribbean to realize and take note of the fact that governments, civilizations, and life as we know it started from farmers. So it is in agricultural practice we figure out how to feed ourselves, feed our families, and from that we figured out the rest. That said, there is a gap between the age groups, between now practicing farmers and how a lot of youth are falling out of the practice. There may be multiple reasons for that, but I think we should create more emphasis on the transfer of knowledge between the two demographics. So the olders have to prepare themselves to train the youngers, and the youngers have to prepare themselves and be coachable by the older farmers. A lot of sacrifices have to be made. Part of it is going to be just human intervention, those enter in the practice as a farmer. So to the youth, you're going to have to do what you have to do. There's a part to play, and you have to play a part. Now that said, there can also be more mentorship, more open access, and transparency. So for those that do try, and the youth that do try, they can, if not find mentors from the jump, at least have some sort of information center. They can start to gather their thoughts, they can meet, they can speak, collaborate with each other, and just start a dialogue some way, somehow. From there, you start to bump heads, you figure out what your needs are, what you can start, what you can do from where you are. Other than that, there's a lot that goes into actually being a farmer in terms of investment. So access to funding can help a lot of youth. In that, also you have to be able to coach them, because a lot of them don't understand how to properly position themselves, how to properly choose what crop they should use, how to manage their finances, and how to just go on and think about their farm and farming, not as something that you do and you toil in the soil, but each farmer is a business person, because it took time and energy to do what you did, and there needs to be a return on investment. So you have to be able to study these metrics and come up with answers. So season after season, you see that your farming makes sense. Now, governments can help in that area in terms of information. There can be websites, there can be pages, the different hubs and so. But I just feel that a large part of it is just going to be experimental, and we have to be more open-minded, more open-hearted in the way that we support each other, and then the governments can figure out what exactly our needs are and how we move forward. So it's a 50-50 split. You can't say, oh, the government needs to do this and that when they need the feedback, but the youth aren't really getting so interested, because sometimes they ask questions to the elders, they go for the information, and it seems to be unavailable. So there's a bit of a disconnect, and it's just a matter of bridging the gap through communication.
Again, Diamond Works is the founder of Ceres, which is an application that allows farmers to put their produce on their website, and for buyers such as Dexia, hucksters, and other individuals to be able to purchase. So he serves sort of as an Amazon in Dominica for the farmers and the buyers. So do we have any questions for Mr. Kelshaw?
Just a quick one. Is there a fee attached to it for the farmers and the buyers?
Yeah, so it's a 10% fee, so 5% from the farmer, 5% from the buyer, but it's just basically you buy and sell stuff as you would normally.
And is that 10% in, what's the word, registration or subscription?
No, there are no subscription fees. It's just you complete the sale, and 10% of the value of the order is what we get. Yeah.
Okay, is the app up and functioning at the moment?
Yeah, you can check it out on the Google Play Store or the iOS Store.
Okay, we have something similar in St. Lucia. It's called a Guru Marketplace. And one of its selling points is that farmers get paid immediately via wire transfer. Is that something that your app also offers?
Yeah, so farmers, we always try to pay farmers first, because we understand the level of energy and effort that it goes through. So we prioritize paying farmers. It's also to the point that sometimes we would pay the farmer if we work with an organization and let the organization basically give that check to us. So they'll owe us instead of the farmers, because we understand the financial structure a little differently. So we pay the farmer one time, buy the produce, and then do what we have to do.
Okay. My other question is that I'm not sure if it's similar to the one in St. Lucia, but they do give farmer like feedback. like for example, I'm a farmer, and if I sell through the Guru app, it would basically keep my records, and I could use that to plan in future. Like, for example, if Marcy needs tomatoes in December or whatever, there's a higher demand, I'll get a higher price. Can your app also do the same?
Yes, so on the app, there's a host of information. So your history, your buying and selling history, market demands, the changes in market prices. Stores can also go on the app and create lists for quotas. So if they know in a month I use X amount of lettuce, tomatoes, such and such, they can say I need 600 pounds of this, 2,000 pounds of that, 800 heads, and they can create lists that farmers can go on as a collective and contribute towards that quota. You can see what companies are looking for ahead of time. So based on their buying history, you can go and look and understand that maybe Massey or Whitchurch or other stores are looking for X amount of produce generally in that time. So if it's Independence time, you sell more callaloo, or in the summer you sell more passion fruits, then yeah.
Okay, not a question, but I just wanted to commend you on creating such a great tool for forecasting and also helping to bridge the gap between the market and the farmers.
We have another question.
Good morning, everyone. It's not really a question only, it's a little query. So I want to know if it's only applicable for produce crops, because I'm a livestock farmer and I feel last year, because most of the debate is around cherry tomato and stuff like this. What about my different slice and cuts in meat, package ready to get out there? So I want to know when we will be talking about livestock. Thank you. But yeah, can I also sell my produce using your service?
Yeah, so Ceres, we want to incorporate all farming practices, even fishing as well. So we've made ways for farmers who do have abattoirs, livestock, and fishermen, because we want to incorporate the scope of local produce.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll definitely be hitting you up, because yesterday in one of our meetings, we had a talk with a gentleman who spoke to us about business investors. So actually it moved our mind from a small scale to a bigger thinking scale, a wider range of, putting a business out there, not just Vinci, not just the Caribbean, but the entire world. So if we want to meet these investors, we require such a platform. So this is a good discussion. But please don't forget the livestock farmers. Thank you.
Thank you. We have one more question in the back. Or comment.
Yeah. You could wait, just a quick one. If I'm in St. Lucia and I want to order through your app, is that possible?
Yeah, I incentivize that. I hope when you give me a call.
I remember when you did that presentation, both you and Guru, you remember I was there too.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
But we will talk, okay.
For sure.
Thank you. Any additional questions? All right, so we'll move on to the question for our final panelist before we move into the question and answer round. So the final question, and this question is posed to Yasmin. How can technology be used to develop the agricultural sector? Also, given your experience in both academic research and industry, how can we ensure that these technologies are accessible to a broader demographic? I'll repeat the question. How can technology be used to develop the agricultural sector? And given your experience in both academic research and industry, how can we ensure these technologies are accessible to a broader demographic?
All right, so we all understand that technology play a vital role in the agricultural sector, not just for the youth. But then looking directly at youth, there are different ways to make this sector more accessible, efficient, and sustainable. Now, the development of such innovative tools and strategies will make it easier for us in the agricultural sector. So now this will lead me into story time, my time at UE. So I did a research paper and the topic was mobile application for knowledge exchange and learning about small ruminant production for the guy that was talking about livestock, but in Trinidad and Tobago, where I studied. So it all started when I was in discussion with a fellow Dominican in my village, Mr. Malcolm Wallace. So he told me that I need to go over to CARI headquarters like a whole year before internship started. So that is where I met Mr. Norman Gibson, may his soul rest in peace. He was the manager for science, technology, and innovation. Now, he enforced the assurance of the great opportunities that CARI has to offer to me as a young lady wanting to change the agricultural sector, wanting to cause that big impact. CARI's mission is to contribute to the sustainable development of the Caribbean people by the generation, transfer, and application of appropriate technologies through agricultural research for development. Now, I have very limited and probably what you call most basic information communication technology skills. But however, my time with CARI, the small exposure and my ideas with the technical staff, our collaborative efforts helped us in getting goals in creating content and editing and development of different ICT resources that they use today in livestock. Now, it is said that every Caribbean island is at a different stage of development, as we know. But we also need to transform the agricultural sector with different technological advancements. So this is where we have the use of the mobile cellular for information communication technologies, expanding that increasing use of mobile phones. As we know, we all have mobile phones. So the research was done to determine the presence of use of mobile applications in agricultural sector, specifically for small ruminants. It was also done to determine farmers' perspective on technology. It was also done to determine if farmers are willing to use a mobile application for information, and also to determine the willingness of farmers when it comes to paying for such services. Now, my research allowed me to explore the internet and other databases to find the information on what apps are actually there. So I just pull out a few from the extensive list that I had. So we have smart farming, where it has plenty of opportunities in the agricultural sector, where you have herd management based on remote sensing, on using signals and sensors. You have connecting plants, animals, and soils with the different needs of production inputs. You have this smart farming that creates business opportunities for the entire value chain, to name a few. Then in Kenya, they have iCow, where they have ICTs that enables a flow of information between the farmer and the consumers directly. Now you have further development of agriculture for farmers lies in the benefits of M-learning, your mobile learning. Now, your M-learning programs and techniques seems to keep learners engaged, and it supports the learning process, and the devices are a lot lighter than the books and computers. As we know, because of COVID, we've transferred a lot to e-learning, which is, any electronic device that you can use to continue your learning. Now, for agricultural development, the most common initiative in the agriculture is the Agricultural Information System, AGIS. So you'll have your database that connects directly through your agricultural information system, and it's going down a chain directly to your phones or your laptop, whatever that you're using. So you have information coming directly from you as the farmer going through that system to go to the database, and the database feeding you. So everybody is always connected in that kind of way. Now, although there are quite a few agricultural apps, I'm only going to specifically focus on two that were free and developed by CARI. So we have the S-Learning and the SR Marketing. So the SR Learn aims at helping small ruminant farmers to increase productivity through husbandry practices and enterprise market techniques, also using the e-learning platform. The SR Market was developed to allow buyers and sellers to small ruminant production in the markets to interact with each other. Now, with the provision of that virtual market, or the forum of persons in that exact industry can post what they wish to buy or sell, or to view what others wish to buy and sell, as our other panelist was talking about his app. So in my research, going down to the nitty-gritty, I went and interviewed persons from the Trinidad and Tobago Goat and Sheep Society. We had phone calls, face-to-face, all that interaction to just get a little synopsis of what was going on in the farm, the demographics, and all the other information that I could use to just pull out these points that I'm going to bring up. So the most two important points that I found out is that, and we can still see today, that we have a lot more older farmers than young farmers. Now you'll find that more persons are being educated at tertiary level, linking to their production in small ruminant production. Now, one of the objectives of the research was to see if persons use any form of online application or anything in their research. So only to find out, only 2.8 males actually used an app. I didn't get the information because it wasn't narrowing down to specific apps that actually use an app for the small ruminant production system, whereas you'll find that 71% use online information. So you see there is a need, you see there's already that presence of the farmers now going more into the technological aspect when it comes to farming. Now when we go to determine the perspective of the farmers on technology, you'll see that almost 96% knew about what Wi-Fi is and what it represents, where you have the 70% will actually search for information online, and everybody was using social media. You'll find persons, about 75% of people use WhatsApp, and about 59% will actually using Facebook for communication. Now, when you ask, are they willing to use some mobile application for information? So 77% of them agreed that they will willing to use the app once it can help solve their problems on the farm. You will also find that persons are willing for the information that the app will present readily at their fingertips. Now, looking at the willingness to use the app, we found that more females were willing to use an app, along with persons that were between the ages of 30 to 39, as well as persons that actually have that tertiary level of education that understands the need of having that technology at your fingertips to improve production. Now, when we look at the willingness to pay, you know, everything is money, money, money. Larger, larger, larger. So less than 50% of the farmers were willing to pay for that mobile app. However, though, you'll find more females were actually willing to pay to use that app to make production easier. Going back with the same statement, a lot of persons between the age of 30 to 39 years old, as well as having that high-level tertiary education, were actually willing to pay for the app. There were also other insights into the app. So we found that 70% of persons did obtain information from the Ministry of Agriculture to apply on their farm, not just relying heavily on what they find online. In the Indian agriculture, all completed information is processed into that mobile app that actually encourages farmers to be more tech savvy. So you see that in the relationship, not just between the farmer and the internet per se, but you see how it is being guided right now with the Ministry of Agriculture or the other necessary heads or the other persons that involved in actually making production better. Now we understand that M-learning and e-learning focuses on interaction with your technologies, and you find a lot of farmers have smartphones and are fully capable of using it and will be also willing to use the app. So going back to sum up everything that I said, using the apps, using technology, being guided by the necessary stakeholders and having that collaborative effort, it is possible that we can use technology in the right ways to develop the agricultural sector and to make it easier, not just for us youth, but for the other person. You see that some of the panelists talk about an app, who spoke about the different technologies that they work with farmers on, and my research basically just tries to put everything into perspective. Yes, I focus specifically on mobile application and farmers interacting on livestock, but it can be applied to all different parts in the agricultural sector. Thank you.
Thank you, Yasmin. So I will open up the floor for questions for Yasmin right now.
Okay, so I feel a little bit more better because now I'm engaged. I would like to know, like, have some information as to being able to connect to some of these apps because it's been like a hobby for me growing up doing livestock. But since about 5 years now, I take it up as a business. Right now, I have approximately 130 something heads of sheep, with about 120 being females. In the last 5 months, I had about 250. I had to decrease my stocks because of lack of um, like monitoring, because doing it manually it's very hard because I'm doing it mostly alone, only bringing people at different intervals to help with some things. But now I think that with the use of technology, I could enhance the production and the management and the systems that I have. So I want to know, and I would like information as to some of these apps, like for instance, that could help me to do good record keeping with their age, gender, stuff like this, tagging and stuff like this. And also feeding system, trough, running through the pen and stuff like this. I've been doing a little bit of research. Obviously, if you're in such a field, you need, and you have great interest in it, you have to do your own thing. But whatever other information provided will be really grateful. So if I could have some sort of feedback when it comes to the apps and so on that could be used at my fingertips. Yeah.
Okay, well then after for sure I can share the list of apps. We also, the same GPS, tagging your animals. Not forgetting the traditional way. Yes, we're into technology, but I strongly hold on to some of the technology, the traditional way we do things, the normal, the air tags and so on that still can be used as a way to help monitor your sheep and you know which one that you have. I know you didn't specify what breed you had, but you also have to create a relationship with your extension or your animal care person that could actually help guide you in production until, you get, well versed in the area as well as other farmers. That also helps in terms of production and continuing thriving, and you learn from other person. We know in farming, not always that top-down approach. Is you do that work, oh, let me try to see if it works so we can help each other out and meet markets. That's how it should. But definitely later I will share with you some of the apps that I found doing my research.
Okay, thank you. And your presentation and so on was very meaningful to me.
All right, thanks.
Any other questions? All right, so I would like to open the floor again to ask questions to any of the panelists. Again, we have Ms. Shania Scotland from WUSC. We have Ms. Yasmin John, who worked previously with CADI and now she works with the ministry. We have Ms. Trishana Maharaj from PISLM, which is the Partnership Initiative for Sustainable Land Management, and Mr. Diamond Kelshaw from Ceres Dominica. Opening the floor for any questions.
Good morning, everyone. My question is for the young lady with that addressed the ruminant question just now. I was just wondering if you have any experience with animals being raised, with small ruminants or large ruminants being raised in paddock systems with electrical fencing for rotational grazing, for high impact grazing, that kind of thing, mob grazing. Can you give me some feedback on that?
Okay, I honestly have no experience in that, but I actually have been exposed to rearing small ruminants or even assisting in rearing of small ruminants. In Dominica currently, there is, I could be corrected that I don't know anybody that actually have that whole area of the electric fencing for the grazing system. Okay, so I was told it have. So I'm not really exposed right now to that kind of thing. I think we have somebody. Okay, so she will speak more on it. But in dealing with small ruminants, that's more of my passion than the larger ruminants. Something personal about me is that I fear large animals, but if I have to do it, I will deal with them. So, but I handle myself pretty well on the farm. In grazing, it's not just heavily, you have to have that whole paddock system, establish your different types of grasses and what you're using them for, as you know. How do I say it? Depends on what you're grazing for. You use different type of grasses. And then you have your sections of a lot of work dealing with your different age groups and keeping everything separated. And then you also have external factors that actually affect your production in terms of prey, parasites, and so on. So you also always have to try your best to keep your herd healthy. And like I was telling gentlemen, there's always some level of communication and connection with other persons around you, as well as different professionals in your field. But to go specifically for the electrical fencing, let me just pass it over to Ms. Portland.
Can you repeat the exact question, please?
The question was simply if she has experience with it, the production system, as like, does she know of persons who implement it, and to add to it, it would be like, what is the results, or how are they doing for like mob grazing, carbon sequestration, that kind of thing?
Okay, so I personally don't rear goats. However, there was a project that was done under Earl Crop where they piloted the usage of electronic fencing to determine like how effective it was on keeping things like dogs out of attacking and killing the goats. Because a lot of our goat farmers, they experience, there's a group of farmers in Cochrane who have goats, and they experience a lot of predator larceny, like people actually stealing the goats. And then also like a lot of dogs keep on attacking the goats and killing the goats. So what we've noticed is that even if you use a regular fence, the goats, they're very smart. The dogs, they're very smart, so they just dig under and try and come up, and again, they still end up killing the goats. So the electronic fence is a notch higher where you can actually, prevent them from actually coming in, digging or not. They're gonna get, that little zip, and then they won't, And then they're smart too. So when they realize that that's what the fence is giving off, like most times they back away and they leave the goats alone. So the only thing though is that, in having discussions with livestock officers, particularly one, Mr. Bofong from the livestock station, he recommends the fencing, yes, but it's still important to allow your goats to exercise and, to at least get some room to move around. He was saying at the end of the day, you cannot have more than 20 goats on 1 acre of land. So it's not advisable for you to restrict them that much. You need to ensure that if you're doing the fencing approach, that there is significant space for that goat to be able to move around and be able to graze and so forth. And if you're doing the cut and carry approach as well, you still need to ensure that it's not too laborious for you as a livestock farmer, because I feel like that it does take a lot of time to have to cut and carry the things like the copy or the different grasses that your goats need to. So, yeah. I hope that answers the question.
Okay, I'll take the question from... Go ahead.
Not a question, but to add to that, I work with the project, the ILCROP project. So, and I know pretty much about the fencing, and they do work to keep the predators out, the dogs, and some humans too. But they also keep the goats in. So when the goats or the sheep come to the fencing, they get the zap. Now some farmers, they would turn it off during the night or during the day also. But because of the previous zaps the animal would get, they are accustomed to it, so they would not, so like they would have their territory, they would not try to go outside. So the fencing, it do work, and that was a great initiative by the project and the government. Yeah.
I'll take the question from the young lady, then Mr. St. Vincent, and then back to the front here.
Hi, good morning. So this question is directed to Musk. Now, I'm hearing all this talk about research, innovation, and adoption, introduction of technology, and then we're speaking about the older farmers and younger farmers. Now, I know that I have been to a lot of trainings and workshops in the past, specifically with WUSC. Now, I believe there is a big problem, or there is a gap among older farmers and younger farmers. Now, having gone to certain trainings and workshops, yes, I would have been trained to use innovation, technology. I would have had the opportunity to also be educated on a higher level within the field of agriculture. And I can be sad and happy at the same time, because sad in the sense that I'm gaining knowledge, I'm experiencing new things. And then you have the older generation that have not been given the opportunity to receive that education. They do not know how to use mobile apps, etc. And then with the introduction of youth, we're pushing technology, we're pushing mobile apps. But yet still, us as the younger generation youth, we do not have land titles. It is our parents' own, our family, etc. Sometimes, or most times, we're reaping the benefit of their hard work. So for example, with the mobile app, yes, it's true the youths and them can go on the mobile apps to sell their produce, etc. But in truth and reality, those produce are not actually the youth's own. They're reaping the benefit of the hard work of their older generation. So with that being said, the older generation might feel, okay, why should I allow you to sell my produce on that app for you to be the one to gain recognition for it? So I believe that's one of the reasons there is a huge gap among the older generation and the younger one. In that being said, you have the traditional farming methods and the indigenous practices and skills that are being used by the older generation, and they are not willing to partner or work with the younger generation because they feel in a sense that we come and we think, okay, we're better than them, we went to study, this is how you're supposed to do it, this is the better way, etc. And sometimes that is not the case. So I wanted to find out from WUSC, was any thought given to have a training or a workshop where they can allow the older generation with the indigenous practices and skills, or with the traditional farming methods, where they can actually come in and have a presentation with the younger generation, with the youth, to actually train them and incorporate it with the knowledge or the innovation and adoption methods that they would have gained. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So yes, definitely we have actually taken things like, mentorship and training of budding agriculturists very seriously at WUSC Caribbean. So we have had at least 2 mentorship programs in collaboration with Dominica State College, where majors from the agriculture program were able to actually get hands-on experience with farmers in the farmer groups that we were dealing with, particularly in areas like Warner, Mont Prosper, and even Salisbury. Even Bellevue Chopin as well. So I mean, at the end of the day, I feel like it takes 2 sides to kind of make this work. I mean, there will be a little bit of a divide, but all we have to do is just show each other that we are one. We don't know everything. Like, we don't know everything. So you have the strength of using the technology. You have the strength of having the higher education, as you may say. They have the strength of, traditional knowledge, having lessons learned, going through massive weather events and knowing what will come based on the seasons. And you can just combine that together if you just work together. I feel like most of the farmers that I deal with, honestly, they farm as a family, like literally mother, sister, uncle. cousin on that same farm. Not saying that they're all managing the same plot, but they're all on the same land. And, they just work together to try and help each other. So if they have a sale or, they can use the app better than the other, it's just about teamwork and operating like a business. So it's just going in with the mindset that, we can also just help each other. And, the mentorship program is not going to be the only thing that is required. You need a constant, practice of the different things that they were saying. Like, let's say, if the traditional way is to weed a certain way, mold a certain way, plant on the mound or not inside, it's a constant practice of trying to test these things and experience what comes from it. If you actually get a better harvest or a worse harvest or just a mediocre, normal, regular harvest. So we have done these type of programs before, and we're now moving on to other things where we're trying to get other partners to take it up, as well as even the college to take it up as well. So thank you.
Thank you for that. And with our next questions, we have about 5 minutes left, so let's try to keep the questions and the answers concise. So we had a question from St. Vincent here, and then a question up here, and then we'll sit back here and over here.
Hello, good morning, everybody. My question this morning is, what are some of the plans we have as a people and as a nation to get the youth more involved in agriculture and production? Question posed to the panel.
To anybody?
To the panel, anybody.
Okay, so anybody would like to go ahead and answer that?
Just can you repeat the question, please?
What are some of the plans we have as a nation and as a people to get youth more involved in agriculture and producing more food? Because now we have a problem that the world population is increasing very rapidly. So we need to get more food growing in order to feed people. And it's one of the biggest concerns we have right now.
Well, it's a very, I wouldn't say broad question, but each country would have their own priorities, they would have their own agenda. And even the organizations or the ministries within each country, they would have a different perspective on how they want to handle food security. I know the Caribbean as a whole, they are, there's an agenda, they call it 25 by 25 agenda, which basically, it's basically you want to have food security by the year 2025, which is next year. So I don't really want to comment on that. But I would say for an organization like PSLM, I'd give an example. We have something called the Biofloc system, which is a technology from Malaysia. We haven't actually set it up yet. It's hopefully by the end of August it would be. Essentially, it's an aquaculture system. So you want to experiment with shrimp. It's supposed to be more cost-effective than the RAS system. And it's going to be an initiative where we're going to focus a lot on involving youth, involving women for these training programs. So it's not ruminant, it's not crop, but it's a different perspective in terms of shrimp. Shrimp has a big market in the Caribbean. So that's something that we want to look at. So it's a confined system like the RAS system. It's not in the sea. It's like a pool or a pond you have, or a tank actually. So that's one of the things we're doing. Another thing that we are doing at PSLM is that we're trying to grow hot peppers. Hot peppers are our main producer in the Caribbean as well, but we're trying to include more biostimulants as opposed to the synthetics, or looking at a combination. So, I mean, from a PSLM perspective, that's some of the initiatives we are doing. But I know each organization, like I said, and each country, they would have their different view and opinion. So I don't know if anybody else from the panel want to add anything, but that's really just what I have for now. Thanks.
Thank you. So in the essence of time, we'll take one last question from the young lady.
Hi, good morning. The question is for the gentleman. How exactly do your app work? Like if
So it's very basic. Like you would use any marketplace app, you would basically open it, see what's available, scroll through, you can search for what you're looking for. You can create like shopping lists if you know what you need, or you can just browse through and pick up items. And then basically what happens is the farmer gets notified that you're trying to purchase from them, and they basically organize, like how Amazon will organize your cart for either dropping off, or if they need someone to come and pick it up from them and drop it to the location. That answer your question?
Yeah, I just was wondering how the transport would do, like if you would arrange the transport of the produce or the farmer, is basically your app, and notify the farmer, and then the vendor goes to the farmer, or the farmer facilitate that.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah. So the farmer, if the farmer has the ability to drop it off, they can. But if they need it, we'll facilitate transport.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. So we'll take one more question. I was told we have an important question in the back, so we'll take this last question and last answer, and then we'll break.
Yeah, good day, everybody. So I just have one question. I realize like it have a lot of good things happening, you know, with like the apps and everything, and I really commend that, like bringing that kind of a innovation for the youth to be able to access it. But my only issue is like the lack of like communication, of being able to know about these, like so many things that really happening. Like if it wasn't for this forum, I was kind of oblivious, you know. There's so much going on in terms of apps and accessing certain ideas like that to help me in my journey as a farmer, you know what I mean? So I want to know like what are you really doing to like push out that that information, where you're representing all yourself, if you're doing adverts, if you're at any way that we can probably try to get that knowledge to share with our friends and our colleagues that in the same field, you know what I mean?
So we'll try to take at least a 1-minute response from each panelist. Thank you. So we'll start with Shania.
So we try our best to do different communication pieces on Facebook. So our Facebook is WUSC Caribbean. We also have a website, but it is the international website though, that posts our newsletter every quarter to talk about what we've been doing in all the 5 project countries. So not just Dominica, but also St. Lucia, Jamaica, Suriname, and Guyana. As well as we just made an Instagram, so yes, also called WUSC Caribbean. And we also have a lot of content on YouTube. So we have things like, you know, how to, not even just from Dominica, but even also from Jamaica, where they dealt with how to deal with parasites in goats, how to cut hooves, like kind of like tutorials as to how to do those type of things. We have some videos on, like, you know, different soil types, how you can improve your soil fertility, soil testing, and so forth. So that's what I will say for now in regards to communication.
All right, well, with regards to the Ministry of Agriculture, you know that they have their Facebook page, and then they have their website, Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries, Blue and Green Economy, that you could always check out there. But as a farmer, I believe that you also need to have that personal relationship with the extension officers, because each region has an extension officer that works directly with the farmers that can actually give you the information. We have some of the extension staff here, they're smiling as I said that. But that is where you'll get, you know, that information readily available. If you don't know who your extension officer is, it's your business to know. You could also always go to Vanu's house and find out more and go directly there to know which area, which region, who are the key persons, who are responsible for certain crops, and that kind of thing in summary.
Okay, so with regards to PSLM, we have a website, pslm.org. We also have Facebook and Instagram. Most of our information is disseminated at the moment via Facebook and Instagram, but we are working on a knowledge hub where you can access that and get a lot of information, but it's not operational yet, but it's something definitely that we have to look out for.
We have Facebook and Instagram pages at Ceres Agriculture. I've built the page a bit slower in pace compared to other channels just because I want to build things out in a certain manner. And I work with farmers, so some of the things is just like timely. So, but we have, you can follow the page. We have content packages coming out soon, mostly in the forms of tutorials and helping farmers figure out how to do what they do. Again, at Ceres Agriculture.
And for ICA, there is ICA Dominica's website, well, Facebook page, IICA Dominica. And for OECS countries, there is a technical specialist, an office in all OECS countries, and the head office being in St. Lucia. So you can always try to contact the local individuals there at ICA. 2 seconds.
Okay, so I saw a solvent for my problem. Now, you heard the amount of animals I have. Right now I have people walking around, like every hour of the day, grazing. So I want to know if anybody have any access to any information with that electrical fence, because that will solve a big problem. I haven't had the opportunity to go many places because I have to be on the farm every day, anytime. So, yeah. So I'm asking for any linkage, place where I could find the wires, the ideas to buy, whatever.
Yeah, so you'll talk to him, you can speak to him during the break.
So I'm just putting it out there because I might not find nobody after this event.
He's right in front of you. So again, thank you everyone for joining us for this panel discussion on the role of research, innovation, and technology in the developing agricultural sector.
Once again, I would like to thank our moderator, Ms. Marcel, our panelists, Ms. Scotland, Ms. John, Ms. Maharaj, Mr. Kelshall, and you, the audience. I mean, it's a very interactive, informative session, so let's give a round of applause again for everybody. To my brethren over there, we can talk after, because I know a thing or two about animal science, livestock, so we can have a little sidebar. It's kind of nice to hear a little livestock segue into the discussion. So we can have a sidebar after. We're going to have our break now. And then when we come back, we're going to have Mr. Archer. We're going to talk about his platform for moving goods around the Caribbean, followed by Mr. Greg Rawlins of ICA to give a short presentation. So the snack is ready in the break room. So we're going to be back in like 30 minutes thereabouts. Thank you.